Now that the B-movie age is now reaching its, well, top pinnacle of being, very crazy and ridiculous, because, well, extraterrestrials and anything that has something to do with real life, there was a British studio by the name of Hammer Productions, Film Productions, excuse me, which was founded in November 5th, 1934. They are they are based in London, which this British company follows a gothic horror films from the mid-1950s until the 1970s, where they just stopped. They've done basically, well, monster films that have been done during Universal. They've done Dracula, they've done Frankenstein, and The Mummy. The other ones I'm not sure of, like The Creature from the Black Lagoon or the Wolfman. But really, they did Dracula, and they've done it very well with like two of the most famous stars ever. The first one being Christopher Lee. He's played the Mummy. He's played the Frankenstein monster a couple of times, but he's also played Dracula, and I think that's his best one yet. In total, he played 7 parts. He's played 7 films of Dracula, and that's insane. And that's Hammer. He was pretty much the style that I would enjoy of Dracula. Now, I know that I like Bela Lugosi's hypnotizing stare and his hypnotic appearance, and also his delicate voice, but this Dracula was way different. Christopher Lee's Dracula can be also a very kind and sympathetic person, but he can also be a mad, hungry, dog that's just ready to attack. And in my opinion, Hammer did the first time ever where Dracula had fangs. They showed the parts where Dracula can bite somebody, but they never showed the fangs. And they barely showed any blood either. I mean, Hammer did blood, 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 and blood. And then there was, other stuff that is out of my peripheral to say, so I don't get demonetized by YouTube. But it was insane, and it showed it pretty well. By today's standards, it's not that interesting. I mean, I don't like the bright red blood to begin with. But back then, people were like, I want to see the Hammer films. Badly. Then there was another one by the name of Peter Cushing. He's played Van Helsing once, but he's also played Van Helsing's, I think, great-great-grandson before in the Satanic Rites of Dracula. And he's also played Dr. Frankenstein in the Frankenstein movies of Hammer. And he does it pretty well. I like when he's Van Helsing. When he's Van Helsing, he actually becomes a person that wants Dracula dead. And he will take anything to do so. I can believe everything he says by the meaning of both his voice and the way he stares at the person. He means it. And that's the same with Frankenstein. In the original with Colin Clive, he was basically crazy, yes, but he also showed a little bit of sympathy. But with Dr. Frankenstein in this one, he shows no sympathy. He doesn't give a shit what happens. If he has to kill somebody for his experiments, he can kill somebody with his experiments. And even I've found the Frankenstein labs to be very interesting. They're a little bit more different than the original labs. This one looks a little bit more like it looks more like a morgue, so to speak. So, yeah, Hammer was pretty hardcore. What do you expect? They're named after a tool that you use to nail wood into, and also to nail a coffin just to seal it shut. I didn't expect much, but there were some films that I never saw. So yeah, there are some that I hadn't seen before. I hadn't seen the whole Dracula series. I've only seen clips of them, but I've never seen the full movies. That includes Frankenstein and most of the other Mummy series. The only, like I said, I've only seen that. Hammer films, I mean, this was during the time when I was young. I can't look at graphic stuff. And I still can't look at that much graphic stuff today. But there are some exceptions I can put there. But But as of now, I feel like I want to see these myself to get my own personal opinion on them, at least to see how they are. But like I said with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, they're great actors. I swear, like, they play the parts pretty well. I mean, Peter Cushing, he can give two shits about anything else here. He'll play Van Helsing, he'll play anything to make him get a quick buck. And he's a really good actor for that. Christopher Lee was sick and tired of playing Dracula. After playing 7 Draculas, he went off, and that was it. He was tired of playing Dracula over and over and over again, and I think that's fine with him. I mean, if you're playing 7 Draculas, that's crazy. But also, he said that Hammer was pretty much wasting their time with the talent that they're trying to have. They're wasting their time with all these Dracula sequels here. Like, who would have Dracula in, like, the modern days of, like, the 1970s, you know? How would he resurrect himself by just somebody having his own clothes on and drinking the blood of him, this powdered blood? It's kind of weird. And like I said, there is so much graphic stuff that I have to only put a couple of pictures to show at least what it looks like. I can't show you anything graphic on this. If I would only show one clip, I'll show one clip that at least has a quote of Dracula, like at least a quote of Dracula, like Christopher Lee's Dracula, so at least you can see how good his performance is. But the one thing I think that makes his performance, I think, my second Dracula compared to Bela Lugosi, which is number 1 in my opinion, is the fact that he looks like he's trying to control his cravings for like blood, when Dracula can actually at least try to contain it. He contains it at least. He tries to become that type of person. Like, you see how Bela Lugosi, like I said again, with the same type of scene when he slaps the box that has the mirror in it. He goes to that stare, look like he's ready to pounce on somebody, but he goes back to that professional stare that even Bela Lugosi can do really well. Christopher Lee, when he plays like Dracula, not like the oh, welcome to my castle Dracula, the rabid beast Dracula, he doesn't really have that type of, like, I don't know, Dracula part that I would see from him. And I mean, these, not to say that I really think that he's the worst Dracula, far from it. He is pretty much an icon, like, out of all of them. I really do think he's really good Dracula. And I mean, I think this is the first time Dracula had fangs, but I might be wrong. If anybody could tell me in the comments if the Hammer series Draculas weren't the first. If they weren't the first, then that'd be crazy, because if they were the first, that's legendary, because I've never seen Dracula like have fangs ever. Not even like, even when looking at a couple of clips of the Spanish version from Universal, he didn't have fangs either. So it could be something. But I want to talk about the Mummy, because even that was pretty bizarre. The Hammer Mummy series is probably one of the most bizarre series I've ever seen. Like I said, I'd rather stick to the 1959 version because I'm kind of used to it at this point. This Mummy is kind of bizarre, to say the least. I just don't know why. But it still follows the same type of storyline as the Universal Mummy series, where Karis is pretty much, condemned because he was trying to resurrect the princess that he loved. And again, this Mummy is Christopher Lee, and then there was Peter Cushing, I think, who plays... I think he plays one of the archaeologists who knew that the mummy was alive. Kind of like they did with the 1932 version. But yeah, I mean, Hammer really did outperformed themselves pretty well. I mean, they've done creative ways to both kill Dracula and resurrect him. They did different types of Frankensteins that are bizarre in their own ways. They did different mummies, although I would prefer the 59 version because the rest are crap. But yeah, nothing too special. But there is going to be one thing special, so be on the lookout for tomorrow, because this time we're going to Pittsburgh.
Get that thing out of my sight!